All right, everybody. How's it going, everyone? We are on day 2 of Sinister Cyber Con. Second panel up. My name is Brian Jones. I am the executive producer of Sinister Creature Con, Northern California Sacramento Horror Convention. And I have the pleasure to sit down with one of the most influential makeup artists of our time, I believe. Somebody that definitely influenced myself and influenced the love of what Sinister Creature Con is all about, which is the practical makeup effects application. So before bringing him on, I just got to list over some of his amazing awards. 4-time Academy Award winner for Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mrs. Doubtfire, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and recently the movie Vice. Technical Achievement Award as well. Saturn Award 2-time winner of that with Hannibal and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button as well. Makeup Artist and Hairstylist Guild Award for Bicentennial Man, Gleason, Vice, and then in 2018 he was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award. Just slightly very well known in his industry. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in Mr. Greg Cannom.
Hello.
Hello, Greg. Everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you sitting down with us, man. How are you adjusting with all this shelter in place? And like you said earlier when we were talking, you've never done a virtual con, and that makes 2 of us, to be honest. So this is something new for everyone. So how are you adjusting with everything?
Nothing I can do. I'm locked away. I'm being safe. That's all I can do. I'm old now, so I got to be careful.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to be here a while. I know I'm going to be here a long time. So
I feel you. It's definitely a weird thing that we're in right now, and luckily we have these options to be able to do something like this virtually, cool. to meet everybody, to kind of see the fans. We're going to have some fan questions popping in later on throughout the panel here. One thing I wanted to jump into, first of all, congratulations on Vice. I got to watch that movie recently and was blown away by the performances of the film, but I'm going to go into more on that, but congratulations on that newest win.
Thank you. No, it was I've been kind of lucky. Like once every 10 years I get one. So and I was pretty shocked, and it was pretty cool at my age. I can still do that and get that.
Absolutely. It was a fantastic fantastic application that you did, which we'll go into a little bit more. And that's something that I want to really focus on during this panel is the whole entire aging process. But before we jump at that, there was something that you influenced me when I was very small that you're not aware of, because this is our first meeting, but it wasn't actually what you applied, but it was what you were in. When I was a kid, the movie that really got me into, and I call it a movie, though it was a music video, was Thriller.
Yeah.
And Thriller blew me away with the effects. I was a child. It scared me, but I was like super into it. And you, in my opinion, besides the transformation of Michael Jackson, you have one of the most iconic scenes in the entire Thriller, which is right at the end with the laughter comes in from Vincent Price, and you turn and look at the camera, and that's you in Thriller. Can you tell us about that? Because that application was done by one of the legends who passed away quite a few years ago, Charles Schramm, who, if anybody doesn't know, 1939 Wizard of Oz, he's definitely known for the Cowardly Lion. How was that application done to you, and what was that process to be in something like that?
Well, that was an old Halloween makeup I had, and he applied it, which was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And all he kept saying was, he kept getting glue in my eyelashes, saying, "God, you've got the longest eyelashes I've ever seen on it." And he just kept gluing them. And no, it was pretty funny. But anyway, it was cool. I got, Rick asked me to work on it. I got to do 2 or 3 of the main dancers, and then we all got to be in it. And the funny story about 2 funny stories. One, I didn't get to go to the screening at the theater when they had it, and all my friends and Elaine and Rick and everybody were there, and they're all, watching the show, and they're all going, "Oh God, where's Greg? He's not in here. Oh crap." And then I guess at the very end, I show up with a big close up, and they freeze on me and everything. And I guess now it's 3D. I pop out of the screen, which is pretty weird. But
yes.
I had that great big close up at the end, and everybody was like, damn it, you know, got a better shot than I did. So everybody's kind of pissed at that I got that. But the funny story about that was we were shooting that scene, and the camera was there with the lights, and John Landis was saying, okay, you have to hit these marks on the ground here. And I had these huge contacts in, little tiny pupils, and could hardly see. And he went up into up into the sky on the camera with Dolly. And he goes, okay, action, fog. And 3 feet of fog rolls in. And I'm like, what? And I tried to hit the mark, but I couldn't see anything. The fog was so thick. And he came down, and he's cussing me out and screaming at me. And well, if I could see the effing marks, I guess I could hit him. And he's like, oh, that's not going to work. And he just said, okay, you're going to just have to line it up with the lights and the camera. And that was pretty funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you don't think about that when you get the process going and you're like, okay, these are the marks. Obviously, you should hit them, and then you throw fog into the matter, and then obviously you have a face application on. Your vision is probably blurred as well. That's probably a little difficult to hit a mark at that point.
But yeah, but it was great working on that. And then I forgot I was in it because it was so long ago, and I've done so much since. I forgot I was in it, and then when he passed away, I looked up and saw that 10 million people had hit the Thriller thing. And I went, oh, that's right, I'm in. So, but yeah, that was a great experience.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was one of the ones that really impacted me. To me, it was a movie. Obviously, it was done. Yeah. It was created. It had the look, had a great story to it as well. And, obviously anything that MJ did at that time was going to be, as the highest pinnacle possible. So creating those characters really impacted quite a bit, and it had a lot of influence from Night of the Living Dead and things of that nature. So but yeah, so having one of those impacts as a child, I mean, that your specific scene really did scare me as a child, and it really brought in because I was young, but I was such a huge Michael Jackson kid, like at the time of everybody else probably. But yeah, so great job on that. It's one of my favorite things that I knew about you is being in that. So
it was fun working with Rick, and it was funny because I'd be sitting in the trailer, and he walks up and he gives me an arm, and he goes, this has to fall off on cue, in the film where the guy's arm falls off.
Yeah.
And he goes, this works in 10 minutes, figure it out. And I was just and I got safety pins and did a little pulley system with some wire where the guy can hold it behind him and just let go of it, and it worked. And it was that kind of stuff. Pretty fun.
Yeah, it's amazing what you could do even at that time frame. And here we are, so many years later, the practical effects application is very, it's still to this day, I think, is a dominant force, even with the CGI, which I don't feel is quite right. I think the nice marriage of the two can happen. As long as there's a nice marriage there. So,
oh yeah.
So I want to fast forward a little bit from Thriller. You worked with the late and talented Mr. Robin Williams several times.
Yes.
And one of the things that I loved about Robin Williams is that he's able to express so much through anything. It didn't matter if he did even a couple kind of scary films as well, more thriller type. But his loving, caring, charismaticness, his always came through with his eyes and his expression and how he did things. And I'm jumping to, you did with Hook, Bicentennial Man, Mrs. Doubtfire. But the thing that really stood out to me that I wanted to focus on a little bit more was the aging process, the natural aging process that you have done. And you've done that quite often, not just in Bicentennial Man. That's something that you have a very great knack for. Can you tell us about, walk us through how the aging process on Bicentennial Man, because you've done several people in that film, and what was the process for application? Do you I don't know what I'm trying, do you set it up differently than, say, creating a monster? And how much input does one have when it comes to figuring that out?
Well, monsters you can have a lot of fun with. You can design, nobody knows.
Exactly.
You just design whatever you want. and it's fun and so much freedom and everything. But age makeup, everybody knows what it looks like. Everybody, it's got to be really good. And of course, I started with Rick, but I, of course, learned from Dick Smith. I mean,
Yeah.
The Exorcist is what I just went, I have to do this. That had so much influence, and that incredible makeup on Max von Sydow
Mhm.
was just the best, and no filters, nothing. And so I've never, had art classes. I had one in college, and I could draw good, and that's the last time I've ever drawn anything. It was
Wow.
it was kind of boring to me
Mhm.
when I design a makeup. But what happened with age makeup, I started doing it, and I really have to have an eye for it. And I work with great sculptors who have helped me. I don't like doing the fine detail, the wrinkles and the pores and everything, but I'm very good at designing a makeup and getting the shapes and forms and making it work on a person's face.
Mhm.
That's what I'm good at. And I've tried to do like Dick Smith, just become the best at it. And I've almost had a perfect film. Benjamin Button was pretty close,
Absolutely.
but I'm still waiting for it. Vice was a perfect makeup. That thing, I worked with Chris Gallagher and everyone on it, and we applied it and didn't have much time. I thought it was a joke. They called me up. We want to turn him into Dick Cheney. And I was just like, who is this? And I just like, you're out of your minds. And they go, well, can we do it? And I go, I'd have to do a test. I don't know. We did a quickie test in 2 weeks, and he had never worn a prosthetics before. And Christian was like, can I turn my head in it? And I go, it's like skin. It's silicone. Don't worry about it. And it was just supposed to be him looking a bit like Cheney for the film. And I did a test, and it was pretty good. He looked more like Chevy Chase than Cheney, but it was enough. And then didn't have that much time, but really worked on it, got it down. Worked with Brian Wade helping me sculpt it and everything, and we got it down. And it went through many phases, but I did a test finally, and it looked really good. And I went a week before shooting, and I just went, I think this is it. And everybody liked it except Christian.
Really?
Christian just went, well, it's nice, but I want to be fatter. I want more fatter in the neck. I think it's going to be too fat. We didn't have time, so we had to sculpt a neck over the neck part of
Wow.
it, because we just didn't have time to redo we had, I think, 5 or 6 days, and so we sculpted a whole new makeup. And that Saturday we did the test on him, and I'm just like, I think it's too fat. And he's going, no. And we went up to the office, and he got the suit on, the glasses, the wig, everything. And he walked out, and we all just went, oh my God.
Mhm.
And he was so happy at that point, because he was finally, he was loving it. So,
Absolutely.
and at that point, that was cool. And then the movie was so good. It's the best film I've ever worked on. The director, everybody was so fantastic. Amy Adams, I did her makeup, full, just incredible, incredible film. And it turned out so good. And people had no idea it was Christian, which is great, because actors love that when they
Absolutely.
can disappear in it.
I was going to say, let's get to this fan question real quick, and I have something to say
Yes.
about that. So this is from Tara McQueen. It says, when working on The Lost Boys, what was the design process like, knowing you were essentially redesigning vampires for a more modern horror audience?
Well, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. Somebody else had done test makeups. V came to me and said they're unhappy with the tests. They want more stylized. These actors are good looking models, kind of, and they want them. They don't want monsters. They want sexy vampire type things. And so, and I think they'd already started shooting some of it up in Santa Clara and that. And I had a picture. I had years before, a newspaper had faded. It was a faded photograph of this good-looking blonde tennis player in the sports section. And it was his face, and it had faded so much that it gave him this weird bone structure.
Oh, okay.
Very subtle, but it was weird. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to use that one day. And so I got that out, found it, and then I stylized it more. And I did a test, flew to England. I had the contacts made there, flew to England, picked up the contact lenses, flew back, did a test on Monday with Kiefer, and very first test, and then they liked it. And the thing I hated about makeups like Star Trek and that always bothered me was they always do big forehead pieces, but they never do anything here. And Kiefer had a beard I had to work around, but I was very intent on designing it so that it had the structure on the forehead, of course, that nose piece, but then it also had pieces down here that tied into it. So it kind of gave, more of a whole look to it. And the teeth, he didn't want giant fangs. He wanted beautiful pearl-like teeth. And so I did that. And then they really liked the makeup test V and I did. And then, but he said, the director, Schumacher, said, I think it's too subtle. Let's make Kiefer more. So I used that makeup in it on the older brother.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Michael.
Yeah. Michael at the end. I used that makeup on him at the end.
Gotcha.
And then I did a more stylized on Kiefer. So he had a little stylized. And I mean, it was terrifying because Joel Schumacher is a very scary person.
I've heard that, actually.
Oh. And I was just like staying away from set. I just was like terrified. And we did the test. They started shooting, and he called me in one day, and I went, oh, crap. And then I went in, and he goes, I have to tell you, and Michael, the cinematographer, who's incredible, who did Dracula too, and they said, we have to tell you, we were never going to shoot these makeups unless from the waist up. We were never going to go in for close-ups, and these makeups are so beautiful that we're doing extreme close-ups and everything. And I just went, I walked away, and I was like, yeah, happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an honor.
Made my day, and like I said before, look how it's turned out. Who knew it was going to become such a classic?
Absolutely.
I think the makeup still hold up, the movie, the music, everything. Beautiful film. So you just never know. You never know how it's going to work. So
one thing I noticed on that, and you kind of touched on it with Kiefer, you said about the nice teeth and everything. The whole look of the vampires that you created, it was almost kind of weird to say this, but kind of angelic in some ways. They were attractive vampires, if that makes sense. And
that's what I tried to do. I tried to put a lot of sex into that makeup.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was.
And I think I succeeded. That's why I have no sex life. I put it all into the makeup. So
that's great.
That's how it works.
Going back real quick, I wanted to touch on two things. One, the aging process with Bicentennial Man, and then Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams as well. One thing that I was saying earlier about Robin Williams is that regardless of what he did, I mean, he really expressed every character. And one thing that I loved about Mrs. Doubtfire, I mean, let's be real, Mrs. Doubtfire and Robin Williams, he doesn't make a beautiful older lady. But what makes great about Mrs. Doubtfire is that your application and the way he expressed himself through his eyes really made that makeup powerful, and you fell in love with that character, Mrs. Doubtfire. I think you're that. How much of that process, when it comes to working with Robin, was he involved in different applications and his say on that? Because it's always better, I would say, that an actor has more input than less when it comes to the makeup.
Well, that film, and once again, no time, but it was a great script and everything. It was a nasty script. The courtroom scenes and the neighbor, there were really evil, nasty stuff in that movie.
Mhm.
And luckily, with him, coming up with stuff in that, became so funny. Who knew? I just remember sitting in that first audience, watching it, and the audience was dying, and I was just more watching the audience because I was shocked how funny it was and how they were dying watching it. And but that started out where they asked me to do it, and Robin was a producer and his wife at the time, and the producers, they wanted to try makeups, which like is in the film. V tried some makeups, and I did some makeups in the beginning, but I showed a picture of this woman I found in a book from the Midwest, and she just had that face. It was beautiful. It's not exactly what he turned into, but the hair and everything is what influenced me. I said, this is how he should look. We can't do Tootsie again, where we just put some makeup on him. With
Sure.
his face, everybody's going to know it's Robin. Can't do it. And so they said, well, we can't have him in 3 hours of makeup a day. And Robin goes, I don't mind if it works, you know?
Mhm.
And so we did 3 different designs. And the one I sculpted is the one that's in the film. And, oh God, what's his name? The sculptor helped me. Mitch Devane worked on that with me. And we did a test a week before shooting started. And I had contacts in him, hazel, get rid of his blue eyes. And he was so different looking in the test. And I did the makeup that first time and showed V what I was doing and how I did age spots and did a more realistic makeup. And then it was decided the lenses, he was so different looking that couldn't connect with him as much. So we just got rid of the lenses so you could see his blue eyes in there. And then V, at the beginning of shooting, took it and softened it, the makeup down to more of a beauty makeup, softened, without the spots and everything, and made it work. And it's who knew on that,
Right. And I
because
think making
he's got a difficult face. He doesn't have much room from his nose. His mouth is wide, that jaw, trying to get, and yet I think I sculpted in about 4 or 5 hours. I roughed it out to where that's what it is. That's how it usually works, the last minute.
and that's the winner.
If I can just throw in a thing about Hannibal, Gary Oldman, who's just the best. When I designed that, we worked on that for months, and it looked like zombies and everything. And then they started shooting, and they finally got Gary on it, and I flew over to Italy with Glenn Hans and took a head cast of him. And Ridley goes, I've changed my mind. I want him to look like a diseased fetus with a little pixie nose. And I'm like, are you out of your mind?
Right.
And we're in Italy, and in one day I sculpted that. And
Wow.
one day Glenn Hans worked on it, finishing it off real quick, showed it to Ridley, and he goes, that's it. And I came back and I went, so I took a piece, I broke his jaw, moved his jaw over and took a piece and put it just to make it more interesting. And, you never know. It's just...
Speaking of Gary Oldman, there was actually a fan question. We're going to bring that up right now regarding Dracula. So let's bring it up. It's from Charles. How was the decision made to go with an age gothic Dracula instead of the traditional Bela Lugosi look or the minimalist image of Nosferatu in Francis Ford Coppola's film?
Well, I was hired on just to do the old age makeup. That was it. And gotcha. I don't like repeating things. When I do films like Fright Night 2 and that Fright Night 2, was it? The werewolves. I just do weird stuff. I don't want to recreate what's been done before. Mm-hmm. And with Dracula, and the hard part about that age makeup, and then we added in the bat creature later and the wolf creature, and it became a huge deal. But the old age makeup, when I sculpted one first, I got about my 100-year-old Indians, Native American Indians book they have, and I sculpted this great old, because he was like supposed to be like 500 years old. And so I sculpted it and I went, well, it looks nice, but it doesn't look like Gary. And that's the hardest thing about age makeup, is to make it look like the person. So I threw that out completely. I got his head cast, and I looked at it under light. I drew pencil lines where he was aging, where you can see, and even young people, you can really look at their face cast and you can see where they're all starting to age and things, little things, but you can see it. And I really concentrated on him and what I could see in that. And then I have many head casts of famous actors and other old people. And I go through them and I look at them and see how interesting they are. And I might use part of them here, somebody else a neck, forehead, and everything. And then I just really try to get it look like the person. That's the hardest thing to do. And that's why you see so many makeups still to this day that don't look like the actor in it. It doesn't work. And I just, some reason, I don't know why, I'm just good at shapes and forms, and taking a person's face and being able to sink them in. Even when they got a full young face, I can sink them in. And that's all Dick Smith stuff, man. He was so, the hardest part of an old age makeup is right here, trying to get this right around the mouth and everything, and nobody does it right. And he on Forever Young with Mel Gibson, he sculpted a design which wasn't used in the film, but his design, which is, you can see in his sculptures and everything, where he comes down and comes in here and then down here with all the, he was so good at that. And that's where I learned.
Wow. I mean, what an amazing, ability to learn from Dick Smith, first of all, one of the masters. I mean, the guy, I had the pleasure of meeting him one time for like a brief kind of bump in at Monsterpalooza in LA once. And one of the most like soft-spoken, humble men that I've ever met. And his makeup to this day is a pinnacle for many people. And I think you nailed it correctly when it came to like aging makeup. There's a lot of examples of bad aging makeup, and there's a few great examples, and he definitely, Dick and yourself are in that pinnacle. So that's amazing to have that kind of connection. So we're going to get to another fan question real quick.
Sure.
All right, so this is from Jay. You've done Vice and Hoffa and Lost Boys and Dracula. Which do you prefer, and which holds more challenges making an actor look like a known real life person or a monster character?
Well, they're both different. That's what I love about this, is that I'll do one film and it's old age and I really try to nail it and get it down and do it. Then the next film is a vampire film and I get to have fun with it and design stuff, and then a werewolf film, and then a monster. It's just all over the place, and it's different, and it keeps it really interesting. What was the question again?
That's pretty back over here, Jay. His question is, which do you prefer? Okay. The real life person,
like
monster?
And they're all different. Hoffa, I got on that, and they were like, he wants a nose tip. He doesn't want anything up here. I designed it and I gave it to V, and I went, here, I've designed it up here because this is where it needs to be. If he doesn't like it, I'm not doing a nose tip. It won't work. It's ridiculous. So I did a piece here. V applied it to him, and he goes, that's what I wanted the whole time, Nice. So I just went, I do what I want. Because I think I know what looks good. And I, of course, listen to the actor and the director. And the actor has a lot of input. Like in Vice, man, Christian had so much input on that makeup and the character. And it was great. I love that in that. But it still comes down to, I'm the one who got to please myself.
Absolutely.
So they're all different. Dracula was it just turned out to be incredible. The makeups and the Bat Creature. When I did the Bat Creature, we had 4 weeks to create that in, because it was supposed to be a big sword fight scene where they break into the room and he's with Winona and he grabs his cloak and wraps it around him because he's naked. And then they did a big sword fight he wanted. And so Gary came to me and said, what if they break in, the window's open, they think I left, I come down from the ceiling as this creature with skin hanging and everything. And I went, that's cool. Why don't you ask Coppola about it and I'll design. And myself and Glenn Hans, I think it was 3 days, came up with a maquette of the creature. And I showed it to Coppola and he goes, I have to have it. And so they were going to tear the set down to do the mausoleum set in 4 weeks. So we had 4 weeks. Stuart Artingstall did all the hair work. Glenn Hahn sculpted the body, and then I sculpted the face and designed it. I designed the, those cool elephant type skin coming down and the long arms. I designed all that and worked with Glenn. We sculpted, bashed it out. And when I got it on Gary, I just felt like, oh my God, I created one of Hollywood's great monster character suits, creatures, and that was pretty cool. So that was just they're all different, and that's the fun part to me, is trying to solve them and make it work.
Absolutely. And you nailed it with Dracula. Coppola, I've seen it and read in interviews that he really 100% wanted to make that film practical effects. He wanted to really showcase that.
Well, that was Coppola.
And that was all Coppola. And that movie,
I don't want any visual effects in this film. I want it all practical. And it was, and then we designed makeup so you never even saw. We did one of Winona where she was in a full bodysuit of veins.
Wow.
That she was going to wear under her nightgown, that when he looked at her, all he saw was this pulse, which they did a little bit with visual effect. Right. But she refused to wear it, made her look fat. So whatever. And then at the end, I did this cool thing with veins on Gary's face where they're going to time lapse it like the old days when he dies and becomes young again. But then at that point, he did it digitally. Coppola, he just said no digital stuff. And then at the end, he did put some in and everything. And that was a hard film to do, because at one point, Coppola, I don't want any teeth, no vampire teeth. And I went, well, they're vampires. What do you mean? And at one point he goes, no blood in the film. And wow. I'm just like, oh my God. And then, so that's why I came up with those teeth when they look in her mouth. Yeah. You see the little teeth up in there, because I figured, well, if you saw those up in there, you knew at some point they would come down or something. Right. Yep. That's why that's in the film. And then towards the end, he just went, I want blood. There's not enough blood in this. And then you saw the bedroom with the blood blasting, all of blood and teeth. And, so you just, strange, but you go with it. He was a great director because he painted, it was so easy for me to design that film because he sat there for hours showing us painting old films and things he wanted to use from old films and do, and just designing it, that it really came easy for me because of what he expressed he wanted, and it turned out to be so easy. And Dick Smith at the beginning just went, he's going to fire you. You're never going to last. And I was like, and then I saw Hearts of Darkness, and I was like, oh no, what did I get myself into? But
here it is today, one of the greatest.
What a beautiful film. Aiko's designs, her costumes.
Absolutely. And award-winning for yourself as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Pretty cool.
One thing that I loved about Dracula, and I want to touch on with Gary Oldman, because obviously you worked on him on Hannibal as well, and Gary Oldman, his ability to change back and forth. Actually, let's get this fan question because it is about Gary. How many hours was Gary Oldman's makeup to do?
It depended. I mean, the Bat Creature, I devised. That's what you have to do when you're a makeup artist too. You have to think about it as a makeup on an actor. So I devised it where we did the head makeup, and then we could take the teeth out. I'd taken a cast of him with his teeth in, so it pushed his mouth out to really get rid of his nose. He couldn't breathe through his nose, which wasn't easy for him. I tried to cut some little holes in there, and then the contacts and those huge teeth and that makeup and the suit, he would occasionally freak out because it was just so much,
Very claustrophobic.
I totally understand. But I made it. I could get him out of the suit, special blending pieces and everything. I could get him in and out of the suit in 5 to 10 minutes. We had to stay in the makeup all day without the teeth in and the eyes and everything. And then we could get him back in that suit in 10 minutes completely. I mean, it was really well thought out. And we had 4 weeks to come up with that whole thing. So you have to think of that too, on how it's going to be on the actor. But Gary is the best, and he loves makeup. Mm-hmm. I mean, on Hannibal, when he walked in, finally they hired him on, and I went, oh, he's going to let me clamp his eye open. He walked in and he goes, is there a way of clamping my eye open? And I went, oh, yeah. And it was very dangerous, and we had to be very careful. And one time we shot for 2 weeks, and we would put him in that makeup, and I had, a piece of tape on his eye, silk, that went up into the eyebrow, and we opened the hair up and vacuum, stick it down, Velcro, and then we had a wire that came down under here, Wes Wofford devised, came down, wrapped on his chest. So when we went to shoot him every day in that makeup, and he had a contact lens, and we had to put drops in every minute. I mean,
yeah, because eye dries out, right?
We do the scene, and as they're shooting it, as soon as it ended or whatever, he'd walk in and put drops in his eye. And we shot for 2 weeks like that. And wow. Very careful. And there was one day when he didn't put drops in, and his eye got a little red. And I just so we would start that where they'd start rolling the camera for the scene, and we'd go in and then pull his eye up and everything and attach it. And as soon as cut, we go in and loosen it all.
Wow.
And it worked very well. And Gary, tied more. And I'm, no. So it worked. And it was a very clever makeup and how I got rid of his eyelashes and everything. And, I wanted it to be a modern day Frankenstein makeup, basically. I wanted it so disturbing that people would go, ooh, and be shocked by it. And I think it worked really well. I was so happy with that film. And then the end with the brain, eating the brains and all that, I never thought that would make it to the screen. And when we saw the screening, we were all like, oh crap, oh geez, and it made it. You never know. And that the other interesting thing about that, I'll talk real quick, is there was a scene where he guts a guy. What's his name? He guts the guy and throws him over the balcony, and he hits and all the guts go into the street. Those are all, I forget how old those buildings are, and the fresco paint on them and everything, centuries old. And so we couldn't use blood because it could stain everything.
Yeah, a piece of history.
Oh crap! What are we going to do? And I came up with using clear. The sugar water. What is that? Caro syrup.
Caro syrup, yeah.
Clear caro syrup, and put in the fibers that they use on Christmas trees, soca flock or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The blood red soca flock in there, which made it look just like thick, goopy blood. It just splattered everywhere, and then they just hosed it down, and it didn't stain anything because you have to think about that kind of stuff. So
absolutely, because it's a tainted part of history that you can obviously mess up tremendously.
Imagine.
I would have wanted.
10 years later, oh, there's the stain I made.
Exactly. One thing that I wanted to touch on, I want to get into Vice real quick.
Yes.
One thing that I need to clarification on that isn't Vice related, but with Gary Oldman, I read that he had to shave his forehead for Dracula. Was that correct on the old piece with that is his actual forehead application? They actually shaved his hair up to here.
Actors will shave whatever, I mean,
his dedication to it is ridiculous.
Cheney, I did the 21-year-old makeup on him, and there was some digital work in that, which is fine with me. I'm all for it. Called Fan in India, Shah Rukh Khan did a heavy, making him look young and printed it with half makeup, half digital. Really fun and hard. But Gary, he shaved his head back for a lot of wigs in that, of course. And then Cheney, we shot him 21. The very first thing we shot was with his crew cut on Christian. And all that, and I made him look young, did a young makeup, and then they touched him up digitally a little bit. And then once they made sure the film was good and everything, he just shaved his whole head.
Wow.
He shaved it every day, and that saved, half hour or more right there with a stupid ball. I hate ball caps.
Yeah, ball caps are, I would say most of the time they're not done right anyways.
Well, I've used rubber ones, but you can't get the rubber anymore or anything. But I used them like in on Brad Pitt. I do bald pates, which take a lot less time, and it was a rubber bald cap, and he's got thick. And I would sit there and I would glue his hair down, and I usually go through it with hair slick first.
Gotcha.
But that'll sweat out. So, and then I always the 1/2 inch in the front, and I use spirit gum on it and mat it down. I might even put a lace piece across, just hair lace to flatten it down and things. Now they're using that tape a lot, which works really well. But I swear, every shot in that film on Benjamin Button, I would glue it down, spirit gum. 2 hours later, right here, his hair would pop up. There'd be a little boom there. And every shot we'd have to go in and press it down with a puff. And the whole film, I don't know why. Right, this little spot here, his hair would just boop, like Will Smith's ears in Ali. Hardest makeup I've ever done, trying to get those ears down to stay. Took me 6 weeks to figure that out. And it's so complicated, but it worked finally,
With
and
Vice,
it's like white chicks.
Oh yes.
Trying to do white chicks and come up with a spray because they were wearing bikinis in the film, and trying to come up with that pale color on their skin. I thought it was going to be easy, and it didn't work. We tried everything. We got professional body makeup people, and it didn't work. And I had to come up with these new colors of Pax paints and that, because we didn't have any of the PPI stuff yet. So we had to use Pax paints, and we got $10,000 worth of color stay from Revlon, I think, which went over at the last. But I came up with these bright yellow, oranges, and colors counteract it, because everything would go gray again. And you just don't think about that when you take these films until you get into it. So
wow,
it's always a challenge, but that to me is what's so much fun about all this.
Because if it wasn't, I was going to say, if it wasn't fun, you would not have had a career that's lasted 40 plus years, and
and I'm still doing it. And because of the Oscar, I didn't work for 2 years before that at all. And I just thought, oh God, I guess. And then I get that call, and that turns out so good that I've gotten so many calls, and we're doing one right now with Ryan Murphy, and it's cool. And then we just did a test makeup before we got locked up, and it worked great. It's just there's nothing like it when a makeup works. and everybody is just like, how do you do that? I mean, the director in Vice, oh God, crap, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, he just, I walked on set and he'd go, how do you do this? How do you do? Because, and he goes, are you a witch? How do you do this? I go, I'm simply a makeup artist. And because in person, what was so cool about that makeup in person, you could not tell it was makeup.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say.
You were standing next to him, you would never know that was makeup. You could not tell it was makeup.
And that's what sold me. I didn't do any research on Vice when I first watched it, and I knew Christian Bale obviously is very dedicated to roles. I mean, he looks almost deadly sick in Mechanics, and you know, has gone to being, you know, from super skinny to buff Batman to this. So when I watched it, I honestly thought that he gained the weight for the film. That's how effective that movie was, and how the makeup that you did. And you know, I just want to say I can go on for hours. Me and you, I could probably talk to you for hours, but we have to wrap it up. We have to. I'm sorry, but yeah, we're almost done here. Yeah, we're wrapping up. So we can
talk about Benjamin Button.
We barely got into it, but let's have you back, Greg. Yeah, let's have you back, because it was a pleasure. Greg, you have man, I'm gonna say a legacy that's gonna outlive more makeup people in this day and age. And I appreciate your time. You truly have been an inspiration for me personally, but also I think for the entire world. You gave us a lot of gifts that bring us joy, and we don't even realize it until we have interviews like this to go and say thank you to you. So thank you for your time and for what you've done.
Thank you. I've been very lucky and got to worked on these incredible films with incredible actors and crew and everybody. And yeah, I'm very, very, very lucky, and I know it. So well, I got about 5 years left, I hope.
I hope a lot more, man. I mean, you've been killing for a long time, and I appreciate everything you've done. I can't wait to see, once we get all this, you know, shelter place over, to see what your next project is that you kind of touched on. And yeah, we'll definitely have you back at a later time, because I definitely want to get into more conversation with you. So I appreciate it, Greg. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.